Okay. That's our girl. Okay. Ms. Ravana,
Present.
Mr. DeJaney,
Here.
Mr. Leonard,
Here.
Mr. Rodelius,
Present.
Mr.
Here.
Walter, Mr. First,
Here.
Ms. Christie.
Here.
Chairwoman Gutschall.
I'm here.
Adequate notice of this meeting of the Bedminster Township Land Use Board was filed with the Township Clerk, sent to the Bernardsville News, the Courier News, and to all subscribers, and posted at the Township Municipal Building, 1 Miller Lane, Bedminster, New Jersey, on January 12th, 2024.
Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll open it up to the public for anything that is not on the agenda tonight. If anybody has anything they'd like to talk about?
Is there anyone in the audience or anyone online? If you're online, you can unmute yourself, you can raise your hand. If you're on your phone, you can use *9.
No, not seeing anyone? Close it to the public. All right, we don't have any minutes week. Paul, old business, we're gonna pass over that again?
Yes.
Now?
We'll skip it. We'll skip it tonight.
Okay. Okay, we have 2206, that's still on for me. We'll see. Still we'll see. Okay, and 2475, that's ongoing until April meeting. So we can start with Melise. Is that how you say it, Melise?
Yes, it is.
Good.
Here by the microphone so you can.
Yes, please.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Spacero. I represent Anthony and Teresa Melise in connection with their application for use variance relief. Just a very, you want to go to completeness?
It's already been done.
Done. Wonderful. Okay. I'll just make a brief opening statement. I usually don't, but in this circumstance, the factual pattern here is a little unusual. I thought that I would. The Melises bought this property last year and frankly were duped into believing that this was a legal two-family home. The listing for this property was listed. There were two listings. One for single-family homes. In the single-family home listings, for multiple listing, it identified it as a two-family. It was also listed in a separate multiple family listing with the Garden State Multiple Listing Service. There are two electrical meters that service this property. There are two mailboxes. There are two separate entrances. The property's taxed and has been taxed as a two-family. They had every reason to believe this is two-family. They wanted to do the right thing after they purchased the property and came in to secure construction permits, and to their chagrin, construction runs it past zoning, and zoning said, wait a minute, this is not a two-family. I made an OPRA request, and as part of my application, I submitted some letters, two letters from the zoning department, one from a zoning officer that I know, and one that I don't. One dates back to 1987, advising the then property owner, and it was signed by a Walter Hawk. Maybe you really need to be an old timer to remember Walter Hawk. I don't remember Walter.
Frank used to live next door to the old municipal building.
Okay. Well, I was around. I was around in '87, but I didn't know Mr. Hawk. Who said that this was not a legal two-family, and basically you need to do something about it. And then there's a second letter from a gentleman that I do know, Jeff Price, who was the zoning officer in 2015. And that letter was addressed to Gary Matarazzo, who is the individual that my clients purchased property from. advising him that this was an illegal two-family, that he needed to basically do something about it. I spoke to Mr. Price after Mr. and Mrs. Melise came in to see me and asked Jeff if he had any recollection of this and what had transpired, and he did not. There is nothing else in your records that indicate that any enforcement action was taken, that there was any effort to abandon the use. The tax records that I secured by way of an Oprah request indicate that this property has been identified as a two-family home and taxed as such since at least 2014. I don't know if that was the earliest they could go back and look at their property tax cards. So those are the facts that I think are uncontroverted. There are all the documents that I refer to were submitted in part of the application. They include the two letters from the zoning officers, again, one dated December 1, 1987 from Walter Hawk, the zoning officer, a second July 21, 2015 from the then zoning officer Jeff Price. There's a series of photographs that show the entrances, separate entrances that I'll review with my client. Also included in the application were the two multiple listings, one that lists single-family homes that references the property as a two-family home, and then a multiple family listing that identifies the property as a two-family home. The tax cards that show that since 2014, the property's been taxed as at least 2014, taxed as a two-family. Some nice photographs that show the two separate electric meters, two mailboxes. The facts are what they are. I'd like to call as my first witness, Mr. Melise, please. Mr. Collins is going to swear you in, so just raise your right hand.
Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And please state your name and address and spell your last name.
My name is Anthony Melise, probably 127 Somerville Road, Bedminster. And my spelling, my last name is Melise, M-E-L-I-S-E.
Thank you, Mr. Melise. And if you would be seated and near the mic, that'd be great.
Mr. Melise, you're here with your wife Teresa, correct?
Yes, my wife Teresa.
And the two of you purchased this property last year,
Yes, we did.
February of last year.
Yes.
Prior to your purchase of the property, did you have the benefit and advice of a realtor, and you look at the multiple listings for the property?
Yes, we originally saw the house listed as on Zillow. We were searching for two-family homes out in Somerset County. And when I saw the home here in Bedminster, was actually very excited because Bedminster is a beautiful town. Reason we were looking for a two-family was, we have 6 adult daughters, and we're actually at the point between their ages 20 to 32, and rent in New Jersey is not the easiest thing these days. So we were hoping to have an access to a property. One of our daughters works out here in Hillsborough. That being said, in the multiple listing on Zillow, I called my cousin, Dawn Ashnold, who's a realtor out here in Somerset County. And then I went out and saw the property with her. We went out and it was a total two-family, it's 2 separate entrances. I never had a reason to doubt that it was not a two-family. There's 2 electric meters. There is 1 boiler, but a lot of older homes like that have 1 heating system for the whole home. I thought nothing strange about it. So we moved forward.
These copies of the listings, one in
Yes,
the multiple listings, single family homes that identifies the property as a two-family, and then multiple listing for multiple for
yes, they showed us this.
Okay. And these I'll just hold these up. I don't think we need to mark these separately. These were submitted with the application package. I'll also show you a photograph that was included in the application.
Tony, why don't we mark them, just because that way we can
All right.
separately talk about them more easily.
Fine.
So A1 will be the listings.
Collectively, the 2 listings.
Okay, to those-
Okay, and then we'll mark, if we can, as A2. This is a photograph depicting the 2 mailboxes.
correct.
And did you install these, or were these here when you bought the property?
There was existing real old ones. I did put new ones up.
So that's A2. Also a photograph that shows. And I'll just hold this up so you know which one I'm looking at. This is, Mark, this is A3. This is towards one of the, by one of the entrances that shows the two electric meters. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
I'll also A4, which is another close-up photograph of the two electric meters. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And these were here when you purchased property?
Yes, they're very old meters, you can see.
Now, describe the access to the property, if you will, to the interior.
The first floor enters through the front porch, single entrance. That does the whole first floor, and from the first floor, you can go to the basement. The second floor entrance is on the side of the property. It goes up to the second floor. There's no connecting stairwells at all interior of the house.
I'll show you this
Thanks, sir.
photograph that has a stairwell on the side. Is this the access? to
That's the access to the second floor,
All
yes.
right, we'll mark this as we up to 6, Tom?
Yeah, and then when you go up those stairs, as soon as you walk in, the landing there was actually where they had the washer dryer for the second floor unit, and the washer dryers were in the basement for the first floor. Again, I didn't think it was not a two-family at all, by no means.
How did you learn that this was not a legal two-family?
Right, the second floor apartment is very dated, probably seventies even, to be honest with you. So we decided to remodel the second floor. So I went to the building department and filled out the proper paperwork to redo the bathroom and the kitchen for the second floor. And I submitted all the papers as we did, and then it was kind of a while for the permits at first, and they kept asking me for more information, which I provided down the road. And then I think it was like June, I think we started the permit paperwork in like April. And in June, that's when they told me I had to go meet with the zoning officer to talk about the house not being a two-family at that point. And then I met with Susanna, the zoning officer, and she showed me those letters that Tony referred to. And then, now we're here.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we mark the 1987 letter as A6 and the 2015 letter as A7? The best of your knowledge, this property is being taxed as a two-family, is that correct?
Yes.
I'll mark the property tax cards that I secured through an open request collectively as A8. As part of the application, we submitted a current survey of the property. I'd like you just to focus your attention for a moment on the layout and the availability of parking for cars. In your experience, how many cars fit into this? There's a detached garage towards the rear of the lot, is that correct?
That's correct. It's a two-car garage.
And can two cars fit in that garage?
Yeah.
And two cars can fit in front of that garage?
Oh, easily. Yeah, that driveway is like on average 20 foot wide. It's about 125 feet long or something, at least 125 feet long.
And how many cars have you seen parked in this driveway?
I would say you could fit 8 cars in there if you really want.
An issue has been raised, and we'll have our engineer address it, about vehicles backing out onto Somerville Road, which we acknowledge is also known as State Highway 202. Have you experienced any problems, or are you aware of any accidents or any difficulties backing out of this driveway?
No,
out onto
I've
the road?
never had a problem backing out.
How is sight distance in each direction?
Oh, it's very clear because the houses are set back pretty far off the the street line.
Okay, I would just also note that it looks as though this property has been used as a two-family. I don't know if it's continuous, but at least intermittently since 1987. I'm not aware of any incidents. There's no record of any problem with cars backing out onto the road. I'd also suggest that if this cannot be used as a two-family, it's going to end up a larger single-family home. And the likelihood is there'll be teenagers there, and I'd rather have two apartments with mature adults backing out onto the driveway, out onto the road. That must be, as opposed to teenagers doing so that will be in one of the apartments, one of the bedrooms in this home. But that's just an aside and a personal observation after having paid for what I used to refer to as fleet insurance for my teenagers when they had cars. In any event, is there anything else you'd like to add or provide, any information you'd like to provide to the board?
No, I just, I'm just hoping for the best on this meeting.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Melise?
Yeah, I have one. Mr. Melise, do you feel that you were misrepresented when you went to buy this out from the previous owner? They did
No.
not.
No, not at all, because like I said, my cousin was one of the realtors with my realtor. All the paperwork read two-family home. The seller's lawyer's paperwork's all read two-family home. I felt I wasn't misled by any, means. I could see if I was idiot and I've seen it for sale by owner sign on the guy's lawn and I made a deal direct and didn't go through the channels I did. But
When I mention that is because if they're telling you it's a two-family home and they knew it was not based on a letter from 2015.
the letters were never furnished to anybody except the previous owner.
But the previous owner is the one who sold it to you.
Right, the previous owner,
He knew.
he knew.
So he misrepresented to you that it was a two-family
He
home. knowing it
misrepresented
was.
to the real estate.
So
agents.
why is there no recourse after him,
There
but
may,
you're looking for relief from
Why,
us?
yeah.
he's moved out of state. We've tried to communicate with him and the response has been radio silence.
Yeah, we've not heard anything back.
So depending upon where this goes,
Right.
that may be the next avenue that we have to pursue.
Yeah.
We prefer not to. We hope we don't have to, but that certainly is an option.
I have a question. When the fire official went there to inspect the smoke detectors, can you tell me the outcome of that inspection?
It passed, which
Well, wait. It passed. Do you have the document?
Yeah, they had a closing. That was a closing document.
Well, I mean, do you have it here? That would note on it if there's two separate units, or it should.
That's a question I've asked. We've asked that.
I didn't represent the Melises when they purchased the property. I don't have that document, but Mr. Melise asked me this question earlier about why was that issued? And I said, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but sometimes municipal officials don't always communicate. Someone who goes and makes an inspection to see if there are the requisite number of smoke alarms and fire extinguishers, they just look to see there's two kitchens, the bedrooms, they make the inspection. The fact that this was taxed since at least 2014 as a last 10 years as a two-family. Now, you would think that logic would dictate that someone in the tax collector or tax assessor's office might communicate with zoning.
Now, is it passed as a two-family or two-use? Because it is allowed to have commercial on the bottom.
Well, it didn't have an approval for that either.
It didn't
Okay.
have an approval for it, but it is taxed
Taxed as a two-family says, or
Yes.
as a multiple use?
as a, well, you can be the judge of that. I can tell you what the property tax card says.
Would it say?
Sure.
I don't know how that works. I don't know if you know.
When was the last time the assessor was there?
I cannot answer that. I don't know personally, but there is a comment on the tax card. Change from class 4A to the word TO and then the numeral 2 for 2014, second floor unit updated. That is the notation on the tax card.
Because that zone allows for two uses, so someone could be on the bottom, someone could be on the top, just not two rental units, from my understanding. You
But
get,
you would still need a site plan approval for that.
okay,
And there was never a site plan approval for that. I can
Okay.
tell you that generally speaking, when the fire official does a smoke alarm inspection, he doesn't know how many units there are. He just
He's
says
just
it passes or doesn't pass. So there wouldn't be a notation on the smoke inspection that it's 2 units.
What's, so he would know that there's 2 kitchens, right?
He,
Yeah, but
he may,
difference doesn't
but
make
that's,
it
but that's not, that's not what he's there to look for.
Right.
Mr. Melise, when from the outside, it looks like a single family house. I think that's clear to anybody who drove by. They wouldn't necessarily, it doesn't present as a 2-family house. Presents as a single family house. There's one door in the front of the house. You didn't, you know, sometimes when you just have a feel for certain things, you didn't have any concern whatsoever when you walked into it, that this didn't feel like a 2-family house, that's to raise a question in your own mind. I understand that all the representations by selling brokers and listings and all that stuff, and maybe even, you know, the meters and the address and all that stuff seem to support 2-family, but doesn't look like a 2-family, doesn't feel like a 2-family, and for you not to be like concerned that maybe this was something that needed to be resolved before closing.
Well,
I mean,
I
you
understand what you're saying,
it seems like
but
you were
there's clearly
deceiving
two
me,
entrances.
but I just want to know your.
There is clearly 2 entrances to the home. The first floor and the second floor do not connect at all. There's no like other door lock where you can go up a set of stairs. So when they do a walkthrough, you walk through the first floor unit, you see the kitchen, the bathrooms. You know, the first floor unit has one kitchen, 2 bathrooms, 2 bedrooms, and a living room. You walk outside to enter the second floor, you have to physically go outside. Not, you know, it's not like one of those 2-family houses where there's one door and there's like 2 doors and you go up, you know.
Exactly.
You physically have to go outside to the second floor unit.
And the staircase on the side is actually superstructure. You know, so it was added at some point after the house.
Well, yeah, it was added probably in 1980 or whatever it was.
So at
Yeah.
least it was a conversion in your mind, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a house is 1920 or something like that. It's an old home.
It's clear it was converted, just because of the way the entrances are laid out. It's obvious that it was converted, and it was converted, it looks as early as 1987. Yet, for whatever reason, this continued to fall through the cracks. There was a letter written in 87. This is not a legal 2-family. There's a letter written again in 2015, but no definitive action was taken. I'm not pointing the finger of blame or responsibility, but it's just a fact that the use continued. It was taxed. It was used for that purpose. It was represented and misrepresented by the prior owner that it was a legal 2-family. He had received the letter. He got the 2015 letter. It's addressed to him.
so he knew it was not a legal
He
2-family.
had to have known.
So,
And the fact that he
I
didn't
mean-
respond to the letter that I wrote to him, a pretty pointed letter, I think speaks volumes. He had to have known. Had to have known.
I know, so then, yeah, where's your recourse with
Yeah, but,
saying to us or with the person?
So we're not here to solve.
but like that's, the prior owner doesn't own the house anymore. He can't do anything about the zoning
No,
or the
but
approvals, so.
they need, where do they go? To us
come
for
to us.
relief?
That's why they're
We'll
here.
go after him for misrepresenting the house.
Yeah, but
they go after the
misrepresentation
real
only
estate
gets-
and real estate
doesn't
And
get-
their attorney.
Yeah,
Doesn't get them the 2-family house that they think they bought.
Right.
Oh, let's go back a little bit.
that's,
Tony, please give the exhibits to the board secretary and pass those around if you haven't already. Okay, so have they been passed through the board?
Yes.
You also have them, right?
Yeah.
Because it came down to me last.
Tony, I just want to confirm that,
Did you see these?
yeah,
Has to go.
there's no record you've searched, there was no appeal or prior variance for this property, right?
Nothing.
And this case is solely a D1 use variance and variance plan, not an appeal of any kind of order of the zoning officer, right?
Correct.
You're not in an appeal. So this is a case of the tabula rasa again. It is irrelevant really what happened in the past. What is relevant is whether the applicant demonstrates to this board the statutory criteria for a D1 use variance for a 2-family house in a zone that does not allow that. That means that there is no harm, no detriment given to the applicant because there was a violation in the past, but also no benefit given to the applicant because there was a violation by prior owners. That case law is very straightforward. We don't penalize this applicant, but he also doesn't get any free ride because he has had a history here that is apparently and admittedly non-compliant.
I agree with everything that Mr. Collins
They
said.
need to prove to you the criteria of affirmative, particular suitability for the proposed use or for other special reasons, plus and the negative criteria. And because it's commercial or multifamily, it involves a Medici standard, which is an enhanced burden of proof on the affirmative criteria. So although the factual history is something we can have in our record, that you have to decide whether that in any way helps decide whether it's particularly suitable. And generally speaking, that history doesn't make it something particularly suitable. And I'm not even convinced that having been used is relevant, because if it was an illegal use, it could have been a very stealthful illegal use of the property. I'm not saying what happened was stealthful, but not really that relevant because it wasn't lawful to be used. So it's a tabula rasa, blank slate. They're starting their case. Let's let them finish their case and the board can decide whether all the criteria are met.
Frank, let's follow up to what Tom just said. Can you explain 2.6 to us a little bit more detail? In your memo? Without the planning jargon. Yeah.
I think probably the order of presentation ought to allow them to present their case. They're probably going to bring somebody in that's going to talk about this directly.
Address that
And I
specifically.
think that I can probably talk to you a little better about that after the fact than to try to tell you that now.
That's fine.
That's all right.
You certainly have a planner that's here to testify to address statutory criteria.
Can I answer your question again, Richard? About the two-family thing? The house directly next door is also a two-family, and it's a legal two-family, I understand. And it also looks like a single-family home from the outside, because the homes on that street they're built 100 years ago. You know, they're not new construction by any.
Substantially larger than yours, correct, though?
It's a larger two-family, but
I thought there was a precedent already, but
Yeah. I'd like to ask a question. I'm going to digress just for a second. Tom's wanted us to talk about what the present is, but what I'm trying to do is understand what the township did and what their obligations were at some point in time. So in 1987, Mr. Walter Hawk, the zoning officer, said that it wasn't zoned for two-family. Was that because the current owner put in an application for a permit to change it over? Do you know what prompted that letter? That's my first.
My understanding was that it was a two-family dwelling at the time, was being used as a two-family dwelling. And it was a notice of violation stating that it was an illegal two-family dwelling. I don't know if there was a construction permit applied for at that time that generated that letter, or whether it was just became known to the zoning officer that it was being used as a two-family home.
Okay, that's exactly what this letter says. It's part of your packet. It says, "This come to my attention, the property you own. It's being used as a two-family dwelling, which constitutes a non-conforming use to the zone in which it's located. This is a violation of blah, blah, blah. Bedminster. You have 15 days to discontinue this proper use. Please contact this office within this time period to arrange for our inspection to assure compliance with this directive." And then the record goes silent, and then fast forward to 2015. And Mr. Price writes, "Mr. Matarazzo, it's been brought to my attention." These zoning officers, right? Recently letters, that the construction, through the construction part, that the work you have been performing without permits, that the subject property has created a two-family environment. This type of dwelling unit configuration is in violation of a section of the ordinance. An inspection of the residence is requested to determine if a two-family dwelling has been created. If so, a summons will be issued to you citing the use violation. Please arrange for an inspection within 21 days of this letter.
Okay, so I have a follow-up question, and maybe Paul Ferrero can help us with this. The property has 2 electrical meters.
Yes.
In my mind, Paul, don't they have to be permitted when you break a meter up from 1 to 2? When you add a meter, shouldn't someone have records of this being a permitted use or permitted splitting of the meter?
Well, the answer is I don't know. I think we heard a case last week where there was a permit issued to split the meters. And there was never an approval for the 2 uses. So that's, you know, and we're going back to the mid-80s here. And if there was a permit issued, it may or may not be in the records. So I don't know. I don't think that means much, except that it's been there a while. And I think like Tom said, the application here is about whether or not the D1 variance is appropriate. History is history, and history is nice, but history is not, doesn't carry the day.
Right.
I agree, history doesn't carry the day, but the reason I took pains to put on proofs as to the history and Melissa's knowledge and involvement here is that we're all human beings. If these were the people that had made an illegal conversion and then came to and got caught and came to you, I've had clients over the years that they subscribe to the philosophy, it's better to ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission. That's not these people. They did the right thing. They went in for construction permits. They had every reason to believe that this was a legal 2-family. They've really done nothing wrong. I think their reliance, given the layout, given the listings and things, they only was reasonable. That's all. No more, no less. But you have to judge the application of its merits.
Anybody else from the board have any questions for this witness? No?
All right.
Let's open it up to the public.
Oh, can I ask you a question? Before we do that, sorry. Who isn't it incumbent on the part of the realtors, either representing the seller or the realtor representing the buyer, to, in their due diligence, to confirm that this was because again, clearly it was a conversion, to confirm that this is a, because you know the sellers, you know, was getting 2 properties, perhaps it was an income property for him, you know, as far as he's concerned, that's what he's going to sell it. Make more money for selling it as a 2-family than a 1-family. All good, you know, that's his motivation. But there are professionals in this process that seem to me have an obligation to confirm what they're representing, and neither one of them did. The buyer's broker or the seller's broker. Don't they have a legal responsibility to do that?
I don't think so, Rich. I think that in the process of securing a listing, the listing broker would ask the seller to sign this disclosure. On this disclosure, he's certifying it's a 2-family, okay? That's the realtors out, okay? They're not experts. They're not title searchers, okay? So I think that the fact that as long as they had a disclosure like that they would be covered. Now,
the broker.
that doesn't, yes, but that doesn't mean a broker can't go above and beyond, okay? And certainly, you know, somebody didn't go above and beyond in this case.
And the title search didn't discover this?
The title search is not going to identify a use that's permitted or not. A title search goes to whether the present owner has legal title, whether there are any liens or encumbrances against the property. It doesn't go into zoning.
But it also doesn't matter. Right?
Yeah, that's
Like-
what I want to just get, let's try to move away from this
Well,
discussion, not that,
I understand.
just because it's not, remember tabula rasa does this meet the criteria for a use variance for a 2-family house in a zone? Interestingly enough, VN2 allows a 1-family house does not allow a two-family house, and unlike the VN zone, which we were talking about last week, the VN2 does not even allow an apartment above a store. That's in Frank's report, but I want you to know that. So I don't even want to talk too much about whose responsibility it was to investigate or not investigate. Why? Because you don't determine anything about misrepresentation, negligence, malpractice, misrepresentation, honest representation, believability of the history of this property. You determine, did they prove their case for a use variance, which they are still doing.
I'm gonna make two sentences. One is, Lou, I have experience with illegal apartments and people managing to get electrical boxes over and above what the zoning law requires.
Okay.
And the second thing, I'm sorry, Tom, goes to what you said. All of this goes to somebody's credibility. And I think, we always look at somebody's credibility, but I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. So let's go, we finished with.
Madam Chair, the zoning officer wanted to say something. She's on now.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
yes, okay, all right, Susanna?
Yes, hi, good evening, everyone. I just wanted to log on and let you guys know that I personally had the opportunity to work with the applicant. I got involved when the permit was
Susanna,
submitted.
I'm sorry. Even though you were sworn last week, that was a different hearing, so please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you
I
God.
do. I
And
do.
Again, I'm sorry, please state your name and spell your last name.
My name is Susanna Karas, last name is Karas, and I'm the zoning official for Bedminster Township.
Thank you, Susanna.
So I just wanted to put on record and let the board know that I did get the opportunity to work with the applicant once this came to light. I can tell you guys that sitting in the conference room and going over the entire file to let him know that the property was not permitted for a two-family home was unfortunate. I do want to acknowledge the fact that he did go through this entire process. There was no enforcement on my end that had to take place for him to be in the seat that he's in to present his application. But I do think he was misguided during the process, and I don't think he had any aware of what would have been created with him buying the property.
Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, anyone else? That's it from the public, so we're closing the public.
I think you were at a point where you were going to ask if anyone from the public had questions of this week.
Yeah, I did do that, yeah.
No one, then,
No one.
all right, then I'll call my next witness.
Yes, please.
Ryan Smith.
Mhm.
Sir, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And please state your name and address and spell your last name.
My name is Ryan Smith, Smith. I am an engineer and a land surveyor licensed in the state of New Jersey. I work for Yannaconville and Aldrich. Address is 460 Main Street, Chester, New Jersey, 07930.
Ryan, I don't think you've testified before this board, but have you previously testified before?
I have testified before many boards. I have not been before this board.
So we don't need a lot of qualifications, but if you gentlemen would give some qualifications, we can recognize them. Okay.
Okay, I have a bachelor's degree in surveying engineering technology. I have a master's degree in environmental engineering. I'm a dual licensed land surveyor and professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. Both my licenses are current. I have testified before many land use boards, planning boards, and boards of adjustment in the state of New Jersey, most notably, most recently, Bernards Township, Harding Township, Chatham Township, Chester Borough, Chester Township, just to name a few. I'm also a Class 3 member on the Hopatcong Land Use Board.
Thank you. Ryan Smith, we will accept your qualifications as a professional engineer and land surveyor, and please go ahead.
Okay, I'm here to give a site overview. We're talking about 127 Somerville Road, also known as Route 202. It's block 33, lot 17. It's located in the VN2 Restricted Village Neighborhood District. The lot is long and narrow. It starts at the beginning of the road. It is 65 feet wide and it is 200 feet deep, tapering down to 60 feet wide at the rear of the property. It is an undersized lot, 12,490 square feet versus the 21,780 square feet required. As I mentioned before, the lot width is 65 feet versus the 110 feet that is required in this zone. However, the grandfathering provision of your code states that smaller lots that have 60-foot width that were in existence at as of December 18th, 2000 are considered conforming. So this is a conforming lot for width with regard to that grandfathering. It is developed by an existing dwelling that we were referring to before and a detached garage. The gravel driveway enters from Route 202 on the right-hand side. The lot has a gentle slope from Route 202 to the back of the property, raising about 4 feet in 200 feet. So it's basically flat, but it does slope slightly towards Route 202. The principal dwelling has a front yard setback of 57 feet versus the 40 feet minimums. It's complying there. The side yard setback, however, is an existing non-conforming 7.8 feet versus the 20 feet required. The rear yard setback is 104.5 versus the 45 feet required, again, complying. The detached garage has a side yard setback non-conforming at 2.2 feet where 10 feet is required. The rear yard for the detached garage is 46.7 feet where 10 feet is required, so that is complying. Coverage calculations that I did based on the survey performed by my firm yielded a building coverage of 9.4%, where 15% is allowed. The lot coverage, however, is 36.4% versus the 30% allowed. That is an existing non-conforming coverage. As we mentioned before, the driveway is a long, wide driveway. It's 16 feet wide at the road, goes out to 20 feet before it tapers down to about 14 feet where the house pinches it between the property line and the house. And then it goes back to 16 feet wide before it enters into the detached garage. It provides substantial parking and a lot of passing room because it is, again, flat and it's wide.
You've had the opportunity to review a report from the Township Engineer Paul Ferraro dated February 6, 2024, with this strange Boswell letterhead on. I don't know. I think that looks good with you. In fact, I got a letter recently. At the top, it said Boswell Engineering, and at the bottom, the signature block said Ferraro Engineering. You know, that was just a computer.
Old habits die young, die hard.
Yeah, really. In any event, you have Mr. Ferraro's report, and I'd like you to address the
Comments number one.
Yes.
Okay, Paul, in accordance with your letter, it is recommended that the applicant's engineer investigate alternatives for an on-site K-turn area to allow residents to enter Route 202 while driving forward. I took a look at the site plan and I did do a drive-by on the site, and it is possible to put behind the house, between the house and the detached garage, to put some additional pavement or maybe some grass pavers to pull in there. But what that's going to do is that's going to block any parking that would be in the back. I also looked, and probably would be, depending on your preference, you could, in front of the large tree in front of the house, in between the right-of-way line and the tree, you could put a pull-off area. The pitfall with doing that is a lot of times when you put turnarounds in front yards, they become parking spaces. And nobody wants to ruin this streetscape by putting cars in the front yard. So there are two options there, but both of them would require additional pavement, and we're already over on lot coverage. So there's going to be a trade-off there. If we're going to have to add, again, there are no proposed site improvements with this presentation. This presentation is purely for the D variance. We are not proposing any site changes whatsoever. But if the board would like us to look into that further, we would be happy to look into it further than what I mentioned just now.
In your professional opinion.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You can talk about that.
I was just going to ask one more question about the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
In your professional opinion, is it, do you think it's safe to back out onto 202 from this driveway and as
in Title 39, Section 4-127.1 of the State Vehicular Code, no vehicle shall back or make a turn in a street if by doing so it interferes with other vehicles. It is not illegal to back out of your driveway. But it is the requirement and the responsibility of the person operating the vehicle to operate the vehicle safely without interfering with other vehicles. So it is not required that you drive out frontwards. It is definitely a good idea. In this particular case, I find it to be unnecessary in my professional opinion.
The second
If I go
comment,
back though, I didn't understand why. What's the restriction in the backyard by the two parking spaces there? What would happen?
Tom, let me just comment on that, because that's where I was gonna go, because the more I look at this plan, the more something strikes me. In that, you've got 4 parking spaces, but if the wrong person is in the garage, the other person has to back out onto the street, let that person out and pull back in. I think it may be prudent to take those 2 stalls, rotate them 90 degrees and put them behind the patio. Yes, it's going to create a couple hundred square feet of additional impervious surface, but what it makes in a 2-family use, you're going to have vehicles coming in and out more often. You're going to have 4 vehicles there more likely than 2. And what it does is it allows cars to get by each other. Even if there's still, some will be able to turn around. But even if they're backing out all the way from the garage, at least they don't have to have a car behind them, like car in space 3 or 4, somehow back all the way down the driveway, have the other one go past it and shuffle around that way to get the car out of the garage.
are you saying, Paul, that if you created those parking stalls, turning them 90 degrees, that someone could use that to in effect make a K-turn and
Well, I would use those as the parking stalls and leave the area behind the garage open. So that means people who park perpendicularly can use turn around. And
Excuse me, I might be being.
I muted her because they don't do that.
this is not the point where the public would make any comments, so we'll
open it up.
get to that. But the point of creating and rotating these stalls 90 degrees and sliding them over does create some opportunity for turning around for vehicles. First off, the 2 vehicles that are parked outside, and if the 2 vehicles that are outside are not there, when somebody's pulling out of the garage, then those vehicles can turn around too. I think it's a reasonable way to make this work, because it is a bit of a concern with the stalls railroaded like that.
Paul, I agree with you completely that would definitely solve the issue. The question that I would have for you, would you be comfortable with me putting grass pavers in there so we don't create additional runoff? Or if I did driveway and actual pavement, would you require a dry well? Because we're talking about 3,600, almost 400 square feet of additional impervious coverage, which we would need to add.
No, I'm not sure I agree with your arithmetic, because it'd be about 20 by 20, which is 400 square feet on my calculator. Maybe on the surveyor calculator,
Well,
it's
that's what
different.
I actually used 9 feet times 2, 18 times 20 is 360. And 20 by 20 is 400.
all right,
Those are the
so
numbers. So we're talking about the same number.
Right, but the threshold for dry wells is 1,000 square feet.
It's 1,000.
Yes,
Okay. And
so you would not have to do that.
would you be comfortable if the board was inclined to grant the variance relief that's requested? Could that be a condition that could be satisfied administratively through your offices? Would you be comfortable with that if the board?
I would not have a problem with that. It's ultimately the board's decision. I think perhaps while the planner is doing her testimony, you can run some quick numbers and figure out what that proposed impervious coverage would be, proposed lot coverage would be. So by the time she gets to the point where she finishes her testimony, she knows what the coverage would be increased.
Okay, I will have those numbers in short order.
Do we know where those headlights are now gonna be aiming? They're gonna be shooting over to their neighbor's house now, right? That they're parking in there, they're pulling in at nighttime. Is that gonna be, is the house right next door?
Yes, this is what I would like an opportunity.
Okay.
Just a minute.
I mean, is there any barrier there? Is there a fence? What's going on?
Along the southern property line, which if you're standing on the road is the left-hand property line,
Yeah.
there is a fence over there.
Okay.
But as far as, how far the cars are away from the fence, there will be some lights below.
It'll be nearby.
Okay, but we would certainly be more than willing to install some type of permanent year-round vegetative buffer that could effectively screen headlights that are only 4 feet high. That should not be, it would not be an issue. There seems to be more than sufficient space where that would be located. There's a large tree there, but there seems to be sufficient open space there to allow for a vegetative buffer.
I think the neighbor's gonna.
When you guys share,
Excuse me, I will take Tom Collins' position here and say, please wait until you're called upon. You've been through multiple hearings before with this board and you know the process, so please be patient.
We will open it up to the public. I'll ask the board, anything more for this witness?
How much width do you really need for a K-turn?
I'm sorry? The
How much
length of
width
the
do you
car,
need to do a 3-point K-turn?
what we usually use is the depth of a parking space, which is 20 feet.
And how wide is the driveway?
The driveway is, at that point, it's 20 feet wide. By the house where the stairs kind of neck it down, it's about 14 feet wide. In front of that, by the front porch, it widens up to 20 and then tapers down where it's mostly 16 feet from the front of the house to the road.
So by just adding 4 feet of width on the lawn side, you could accomplish a K-turn in front of the house.
You could, but I think Mr. Ferraro is recommending that it be somewhat deeper than that to actually be able to pull the
I'm
car.
just talking about minimally,
But the answer to
minimally,
your
you
question
could,
is yes.
you could, if you got to the 20 feet, you could pull up the K-turn.
Yes.
What we usually like to use for a rule of thumb when you're talking about pulling a K-turn in a driveway is a typical aisle width in a parking lot, which is 24 feet wide.
24
we've-
feet.
we've all
Now
backed
you're-
out of parking
so now you're
spaces.
making it 8 feet wider.
So that's, yeah,
And that's
a little
a
bit more
parking
than 20.
space width, so you
20
would
is
have,
pushing it.
you would have cars parking in the front yard that way. Okay.
Yeah.
But the garage doesn't look like it's even usable.
Yeah,
Are people parking in the garage?
Yeah.
It looks like if the cars are just, the picture I see, the cars parked out front, doesn't look like it's even a garage, it has 2 windows in the front. Is it a usable garage?
Yeah,
there's slide.
just so we can.
It is, it's actually
Yeah, the
usable.
doors are both, but they both go both ways. They're like bypass doors. Old style.
Oh, so you have to get out, pull it, slide, pull in.
Right.
I doubt it's even gonna be used. It's probably gonna just, you think you're using the
The,
garage?
the people that were living there before I bought the
Because it's gonna
house,
block off the other 2.
They had cars parked up by the garage. They put 2 cars up there. And the driveway is very large in the lower, towards the street, like by the house.
Yeah.
They had 2 cars like there, like, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
they didn't have to bother with moving cars around to
Okay.
get out.
Okay.
It's separate families.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's how they.
You know, while you're here, when you look at this after two families living there?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Malise, when something you said before about you have adult daughters and you wanted to find a place with an apartment, is that because you want to live downstairs and have your adult daughter live upstairs?
Well, that's an idea of, when we downsize, we're in our late 50s now, kids are getting older and, I live in Cranford currently and, it's a much bigger home, obviously with bedrooms. So at some point we thought maybe we'd move out here, but, one of our daughters is working out in Hillsborough now. So we thought, we'd move her in one of the units right away. But
Okay, but that's not, the present plan was not for you and your
No,
daughter
no,
to
'cause I-
reside there.
My business is in Linden still, so it's pretty far. So I still work in,
So this is gonna be more of an investment property.
yeah.
And it's currently empty now, right?
Yeah, there's people living on the first floor.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else on the board?
In the interim, I did calculate those numbers.
Okay.
The existing coverage at 36.4% is 4548. If you add the 400 square feet, you end up at 4948, which is 39.6%.
I can't help but think about the fact that when the
I mean, you have to wait until.
No,
Oh, I'm sorry.
hello. No, I think
All right, Susanna, you don't have to wait.
No, it's Kathy. It's
Yeah,
Kathy.
Kathy, sorry.
Go ahead, Kathy.
when we really spent a long time on this master plan and writing this VN2 zone as different from the other VN zones. And this VN2 zone was really written to keep it very, very historical. without apartments. And that's the reason why apartments were not allowed on that street. And I think that as we listen to the testimony and as we listen to, before we make a decision, we have to think about, why did we write the master plan the way we wrote the master plan? What was being envisioned? Although I feel very saddened by the situation that we're in tonight because something didn't go right. I don't know whether or not we really want to change our zoning because somebody didn't do something right. I think we need to think about that as we're listening to everybody's testimony.
Anybody else on the board? Yeah, open it up to the public
For questions of Mr. Smith.
for our engineer.
Mrs. Rakovich, this is now the time that the public has been asked to speak if you have a question.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
We have another
So I just wanted,
Questions of
I-
you?
question.
I'm sorry.
Questions of Mr. Smith, Mrs. Rakovic, why don't we
Yes.
swear you in, because just in case you make a statement, it's hard to ask just questions, so please raise your right hand.
Okay,
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
yes.
And please state your name and address and spell your last name.
Kelly Rakovic, Rakovic, 121 Somerville Road.
Thank you. Now, Kelly, now is the time for questions. There'll be another time after all the witnesses for testimony. So if you can ask questions of this witness that'd be good.
Okay. So I just wanted to thank everybody for your support. And also, we've always had good relations with our neighbor, including the current owner and renters and neighbors. But our concern is just like what you're talking about. Like when we bought our house, we
Kelly, I don't mean to be rude, but that is not a question. So, and we just have
okay, so
to focus on questions of Mr. Smith.
Okay, so thank you. So here's my question. Will there be changes that our family and the value of our home and our safety have to be worried about? Meaning, will there be more increased risk for floodwaters? Because after the last time they did some remodeling over there with the outside and exterior, we've been getting more water in our yard, number one. Number two, my second question is,
Let's
you're talking,
one at a time. So, Mr. Smith, it was a little open-ended, but
I
you're in
believe,
charge. You have to answer that question.
I believe the question was, and I'm sorry if I misunderstood. Will we be increasing runoff to your property? May I ask which property you are? Are you on, are you to, if you're standing on Route 202 facing this property, are you to the left or the right?
so we're to the left, and just to clarify, we're the single family home to the left if you're facing the home that we're discussing. And the other one that you were talking about is to the right. So we're a single family home to the left if you're facing the property of discussion.
Okay, my answer to your question is in accordance with the stormwater management requirements of the town of the Township of Bedminster. We would not be required to do stormwater mitigation for the de minimis net increase of 400 square feet. That being said, yes, a small amount of impervious coverage added could have the potential to add a small amount of runoff towards your property. But having dug many, many times for septics in this area, the existing impervious coverage in this area, there is a clay cap above shale. in the land that we're talking about here, there is a lot of runoff generated. The difference between the clay soils that you have here and any pavement that we would have put on top of it would be very, very small because most of the runoff runs off anyway already.
Can I be honest? So when Gary moved out and they redid the current property next to us, as we've been discussing, we've been experiencing much more water in our yard, which has been causing much more water that we never had in our basement to this degree. And so that's a concern. And also the concern, which we don't, that, I mean, you know, that's one concern. But the other concern is if we're talking about changing parking places and and all that stuff, our kids play outside, like, and we moved to this neighborhood, so we all had front yards without like pavement in the front of the property. And if anyone would put pavement
Kelly,
in between,
Kelly, this is not a question either, so save your testimony for after all the witnesses, because that's the appropriate time for this type of group of sentences, so if you have a question for Mr. Smith, please
okay.
talk.
So
We
here's
have-
how I'll pose it as a question.
Not now.
Is the driveway gonna be changed? Because if it would negatively be changed for us, we need to know that. So is the driveway gonna be negatively changed? Is anything else gonna be negatively
That's a
changed?
question, so he'll try to answer your question. I think he's already explained it on direct, but he'll explain it again.
Our proposal tonight was no changes to the site work. What we were discussing, Mr. Ferrero and I, was moving a couple of parking spaces behind the house to enable cars to turn around. So we're not talking about adding any pavement to the front yard. We're talking about adding a couple of parking spaces behind the patio at the rear of the house.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Yes, ma'am.
And are there any other changes that could possibly affect our property, our lives, our safety? That's what I'm wondering.
We are not proposing any other changes than what, if the board were to look favorably and were to ask us to require to add those 2 parking spaces, those would be the only changes we would be making to the plan.
And the parking spaces would be additionally to where the parking spaces are now. It wouldn't change the view of the backyard, the view of like the historic district. It would just be widening their current parking spots.
We would be adding 2 parking spots behind the patio at the rear of the house.
Behind the patio at the rear of the house. Okay, so my concern is that patio is very close to our deck and our house. So would these 2 parking spots be near their own personal garage? Because if it's starting to get closer to our deck and our privacy, that's an issue.
They're not going to be on your lot. They're going to be directly behind the existing house. Between the patio and the garage.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, thank you for listening. If these extra parking spots,
Kelly, do you have another question?
yes, where exactly are these parking spots gonna be?
They're going to be directly behind the existing dwelling, between the patio and the detached garage.
Okay, so on that side of the house.
Not on the side of the house, behind the house.
Okay. Thank you very much. I just wondered. And we've always had a good relationship with everyone there, and thank you for everyone's help. We just want to make sure, you know, that whatever is happening, we're all on, you know, supporting each other and being on the same page.
Thank you, Kelly, for your questions. Okay, anyone else in the public? We have another one. Please come up front. Give your name, your address.
I squeeze it next to you guys.
Absolutely.
Stuck. Greg Kenya, 132 Somerville Road. I'm directly.
Greg, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
So help me God.
And please spell your last name.
Kania. Oh, can I grab this one? Cool.
And Greg, what was that address again?
I'm at 132 Somerville Road, directly across the street from the subject property.
Thank you.
I get the headlights.
If they don't back out.
Yeah. So the funny thing is that Somerville Road and 202, this is, are these questions for you or is this?
If this is
comment?
a question for
This
you.
portion of the, is to ask me questions.
I'm sitting down.
Oh,
I have no questions for you.
Okay, thanks.
I'm for everything.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll close it to the public. We don't see anyone else. Okay, and you have another witness?
yes, I do. Allison Copsco, please.
Allison, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? And please state your name and address and spell your last name.
Allison Kopsco, Kopsco. I'm a senior planner at J. Caldwell and Associates. The address is 145 Spring Street in Newton, New Jersey.
Thank you, Allison. And although I recognize and accept your qualifications, I don't think you testified before this board. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So some summary, at least, of your qualifications are in order. Please.
Sure. I received my master's degree in city and regional planning from Rutgers University in 2019. I've been working at J. Caldwell and Associates since then, and I've been accepted as an expert in planning in front of boards including Mountain Lakes, Denville, Stillwater up in Sussex County, East Orange, and Mount Olive.
Thank you. The board will recognize and accept your qualifications as a professional planner. Please go ahead.
Go ahead, Allison. Tell us what you want to say.
Sure. So as you're aware, the applicant is before you this evening seeking relief for a D1 use variance to continue the use of a two-family dwelling in the VN2 restricted village neighborhood zone where the use is not permitted. So the municipal land use law, as we heard a summary of briefly earlier, it provides statutory positive and negative criteria that applicants need to demonstrate when seeking variance relief. The MLUL, it permits the zoning board to grant a D1 use variance in particular cases and for special reasons. And also without any substantial detriment to the public good or any substantial impairment to the township's zone plan and zoning ordinance. So with regard to those special reasons or the so-called positive criteria, these can be demonstrated by this project by effectuating, I found at least 3 different purposes of zoning that are outlined within Section 3 of the municipal land use law. The first of those being purpose A, to encourage municipal action to guide appropriate uses of lands in a manner that promotes the public safety, public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. The second is purpose E, to promote the appropriate population densities that contribute to the well-being of the neighborhood and the community. And finally, purpose G, to provide sufficient space and appropriate locations to meet the needs of all New Jersey citizens. As mentioned previously, there are no exterior changes proposed besides those that would improve the circulation on the property. The structure as it currently stands and as it's proposed is in keeping with the neighborhood's appearance with the look of a single family home. In terms of, so the site is particularly suited to the use considering that it's able to adequately utilize this existing structure. And it also services the general welfare by diversifying the township's housing stock. In terms of the negative criteria, applicants have to demonstrate that the proposed variance can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without any impairment to the township zone plan and zoning ordinance. In terms of the public good, while two-family dwellings are not permitted in the VN2 village restricted village neighborhood zone, the existing use is in keeping with the character of the surrounding neighborhood, as I mentioned. It's a similar lot size, and there's no improvements proposed to the building. Again, any modifications would be for the benefit of the circulation to, from, and within the site. The use also provides for additional rental housing within an existing structure, so no new development, with sufficient parking and minimal impacts on adjacent properties that the applicant would be willing to mitigate with screening and anything recommended by the board. And so with regard to substantial detriment to the zone plan or zoning ordinance, so I did review the master plan goals and objectives in the context of this project. And I found that there are 4 specific goals of the master plan, especially in terms of land use and housing, that are advanced by this project. The first being to maintain, conserve, and enhance the special character of the countryside and historic villages, which have made Bedminster Township an attractive place for many generations and manage future development to preserve the rural character. Again, no site improvements are proposed. The second goal that I found is advanced by this project is to protect, maintain, and enhance Bedminster's unique sense of place, which includes diverse residential neighborhoods. Next is to establish development densities and intensities at levels which do not exceed the planning capacity of the natural environment and current infrastructure. And finally, the last goal that I found that the project advances is to maintain a reasonable diversity of housing to serve households of all ages and sizes within a reasonable commuting distance of places of employment. So the omission of the two-family dwelling as a permitted use in the VN2 zone, it can be reconciled with the length of time that the use has been in existence without any apparent incidents in combination with the advancement of numerous township master plan goals and objectives. With these considerations in mind, the D1 use variance relief being requested can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without substantially impairing the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. That concludes my testimony.
Board, any questions? I don't see any. No. We'll open up to the public.
We're going to open up the public for questions of this witness.
So Frank, this is where I was asking the question before. So when we go through this.
Why don't, oh, you want to, let's do questions.
This
Let's
is
finish.
ultimately directed here, but
Yeah,
Frank
but
had some guidance in his letter, so I want to just follow through with Frank's guidance with respect to.
I just want to close out the cross-examination of this witness
For the
by the
public.
public, just for ease of,
Before we go to the
Memory.
public, though, I wanted to ask
Oh.
a question,
okay.
right? That's where I guess I had too long of a pregnant pause now.
Rich, is the question for this witness?
The question's for this witness, but I want to clarify the nature of the proofs that you are recommending.
Proofs that I've
Okay.
described that are needed are the
Yes.
proofs that she just addressed. at the
Okay,
witness
so
testimony.
where I'm going with this. on
The
pub-
area is, it doesn't mean that you have to adopt what she stated. She has tried to address his comment of his report.
Okay, so we did, one of the things that,
Criteria.
one of the things that we did not talk about is the hardship that this may present.
This, okay.
It's not a hardship.
This is,
Hardship
there is no
is irrelevant.
request, there was no And
If we deny this application, let me put it my own way, and then you can tell me that I'm wrong, okay?
I'm not.
How about we do that, all right?
I can tell you you're wrong first.
Okay?
He's
We're
gonna
never-
tell Denny, we're
I
never
don't-
wrong.
I don't even know if I got it out of my mouth yet.
Okay, stop him from telling you.
All right. So the applicant will suffer.
No, it doesn't matter.
Maybe it doesn't. Okay.
How do you know the applicant will suffer? You don't know that. I mean.
Do you all want to ask your own questions? I'm trying to ask a question here that would be helpful to me.
Go ahead, ask
All
the
right?
question.
I'm not here to be questioned.
No, ask the question.
So if there's no measurement for, if our focus is totally on the negative criteria.
No, it's not.
She had to demonstrate that their good burden is to demonstrate that there are,
There's no detriment to the zone plan, number one.
number
Right.
one is the positive criteria, which means that she's got to demonstrate that in this particular case, there are special reasons that justify the granting of the variance, and she's offered three purposes of the municipal land use law, which are typically where we notify those special reasons. Whether you believe they're sufficient to carry the day, you have to evaluate them, Tom said. But she made a linkage between those statutory references and the proof she has to make. And then the second part, as you said, Richard, I'm sorry, because you've been waiting for this answer for a while. There are also an enhanced burden of proof with regard to the negative criteria. And that includes consideration as to whether or not in the course of having the master plan re-examined over time, why, if there were a reason to change that part of the ordinance, why has it gone unchanged until now? Why don't we permit that? And one of the most challenging things about this application is ordinarily, in 1987, if somebody says you're not allowed to do that, by 1988, something's been done about it. It's either been enforced one way or corrected by an application to the board or something. So it's a little challenging to hear that we're how many years down twice.
But to
Yeah.
Kathy's point, we have specific goals with respect to the preservation of,
Right, and when the VN2 zone was crafted in part because we didn't want to provide the same level of commercial opportunity as a by right development opportunity that you get in the village neighborhood zone, which was intended to be more intensive. We also wanted to permit beneficial economic uses that would allow someone to retain the existing streetscape. So keep those buildings pretty much at the size and shape that they were in, but allow them to be used for something that might make money rather than the complaint we heard where you're living on a state highway. It's getting busier all the time. that sort of thing.
so my position then, separate from my question then. My position then is that we're not changing any of that. All that is remaining in place exactly the way it was configured, perhaps in 1987. I don't know what changes have been made since that point, but there's been no change. We already have, I know we're not talking about precedents here, but we already have two family in the neighborhood. So we haven't changed the streetscape. Beyond the questioning, I think you did a great job. I'm in support of this application.
Really, tell us what
All right.
really.
Okay. All right, we were gonna open it up to this witness, to the public. So does anyone have a question
For the plan.
for the plan?
And now, is that the last witness, Tony?
Yes.
Okay, so now it can be questions of this last witness and testimony.
Or comments?
And then it will be over, except for a closing by Mr. Spazaro if he wants one.
Okay, do you see anyone, Janine?
Are there any people in the public who, including the gentleman who waited before, who would like to either ask questions of this witness or give testimony about the application? And please come forward, sir. You're right here. You were trying to before. You don't have to ask questions. You can just testify if you'd like to.
Good job.
So again, Greg Kenya, I live across the street from the subject property. Listening to the full application and being in the neighborhood for quite some time, living in Far Hills and in Bedminster, I've personally always recognized the home to be a two-family home.
we talk about a lot of lot coverage and things like that in regards to cars pulling in and out. So when I have observed the property from across the street, and multiple families living in it, there's never been any issue with people pulling out of the property or backing out onto 202. Believe it or not, 202 is actually a pretty quiet road with the exception of people coming into school and leaving school. At 9 o'clock, you'll see me out there with the picnic table, okay? Nonetheless, in the front, the driveway is so wide. I know that you can't really tell on the plan here, but you make a K-turn within the driveway itself. I mean, your bumper goes over the lawn a little bit, but your tires never leave the driveway. You can pull in if you wanted to do that. I've never seen any cars parked on, I wouldn't want to have Camaros up on blocks in front of my house, when I live in Bedminster as well. And that's not what's happening here. We do have properties on the street that do have parking in front of the homes. Multiple homes across the street have cars parked in front of them, driveways, paved, gravel driveways. We have dog care facilities. We have businesses that our cars are in front of the buildings, but this property does not have that. The cars are tucked on the north side over by the stairwell going up to the second floor, and car gets parked right by the covered porch and 2 cars going back. They've always been able to pass each other on the gravel drive. I've never seen any issue. The property next door is also a 2-family home. They actually have a narrower driveway. There's a small garage in back, but they also manage going back and forth. We also have apartments down the street on the above the office planning. I don't know the name of the business, but I'm sorry.
It used to be the Blue Building.
Not
The
Blue
2
Building.
dental offices have apartments over them too.
Yeah, they have apartments. I mean, I think one of the biggest things that you touched on in your testimony is that nothing is changing here. Mr. and Mrs. Melise, they've actually improved the property and made it better without changing the aesthetic of what it looks like. If you would drive by this property, you wouldn't know. It looks exactly the same. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed for 40 years. Remember, the past is the past. It doesn't matter what you guys decide here today. But even if a letter was sent in 1987, it's probably been used like that since 1957. Okay, I mean, so without standing on a soapbox or anything, I am in support. I am a neighbor. I'm ingrained in the community. I don't believe this is going to have any detriment, and it's only positive what's happening.
As long as it's back out.
Yeah, listen, it doesn't matter. It like, listen. Yeah, it doesn't back out, full out. Listen, I burn out, I go out sideways, we go all different ways on the street. But thank you for your time and I appreciate it. Good luck with your decision.
Thank you for your comment.
Hey, can I ask Anna a
If
question?
it's okay, I wanted to support what Greg was saying.
Please state your name.
Kelly Rakovic, 121 Somerville Road.
Please go ahead, Kelly.
I want to support what Greg is saying. I feel like next door and, if it's still maintaining everything it's been maintaining, we're totally in support of it. Like we feel like whatever is best in terms of keeping the charm of Bedminster, but also knowing it's a 2-family house. But our only concern is that we just want to maintain our safety as far as our children and where the driveways would be, but also the water runoff that we talked about and all those kinds of things. But with that all being, understood, we're in support of it because we feel like, they've been good neighbors, they're still maintaining the charm, but we just wanted to say how we feel about it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Can I ask Suzanne a question? They mentioned that there are other two-family homes up and down. Are they approved two-family homes, Susanna? Do you know?
So I would not feel comfortable answering that because honestly, unless a permit comes in, I don't really go and research each property to find out. So there could be some that have prior approvals or, you know, pre-existing non-conforming, but I wouldn't be able to just give you an accurate answer.
I might be able to help you there, Tim. Two of the apartments are on top of both of the dental offices that I know almost surely went through site plans to convert them from homes to dental
So
offices.
there's precedent that we have allowed this.
Yes.
Area, okay.
Before
In
or after
those,
we made
in those
amendments to-
situations, it's commercial use, medical
think-
use
I
with
think
an
it's
apartment on
precedent.
top.
Not, no prior
No.
variance or approval is precedential for purposes of zoning variance cases. It's the law.
It has no
You
bearing
shall
on this
not
decision.
Consider other cases as precedential.
It's good to know all the facts.
Okay.
Do you have anything further? Closing statement?
The only thing I'll suggest, I'm not going to address the variance issue. I think the board has had the benefit of expert testimony, has the benefit of Mr. Banish's report. And maybe most importantly, the comments of the only two neighbors that showed up and both expressed their opinions in favor of the application. I would just ask if, after hearing the calculation of the numbers, Mr. Ferrero would be comfortable, if the board is to act favorably upon the application, to work with our engineer to come up with a design to add a K-turn or parking area behind the patio. We would also defer to Mr. Ferrero if he felt that some stormwater improvements were necessary because of the nominal amount of pavement that's being added, and also a landscape buffer. We would defer to his discretion on whether he felt that was necessary. Paul, I don't know if you're comfortable with taking on that responsibility if the board's willing to give it to you.
You're stretching their faith,
I'm stretching.
their, their faith in me.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah, no.
Well, maybe.
Thank you.
Okay, I think
So if
the board's
We
ready.
make a statement or-
it's deliberation time. If the board's ready, you want to talk about it at all? Do you want to?
Yeah.
Anybody have any comments that
Yeah.
they'd like to make?
I'd like to make a statement or comment. Most of the time when we're looking at variances, we try to be very cautious and try to project what the future would be like at that location or with the changes that are being made. In this situation, we know exactly what the situation is, was, and probably will continue to be. So there's really no change, and I'm okay with no change right now.
Perfect, Lou.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I think while Kathy's point is well taken, that we always look at these in the context of what zone it's in now. I don't see this as being an issue where we're gonna wind up with an apartment building on this lot. It looks like a single family home. It's been a two unit apartments for some number of years already. I don't think it's detrimental to the town, and I think the planner made the case that it meets all the criteria it needs to.
Anyone else? Anyone else have anything they'd like to comment? No?
It might be appropriate to make the finding, as Tom said, because of the tabula rasa aspect of this. You're basically accepting not just that it's okay because it's already here, but it's okay because of some of the purposes that the planner said were advanced by this, including further diversification of the housing stock, which would be occurring if you were approving this in a building that already existed, even though it's been there for years and years. So there are, I think you just don't want it to sound like you just decided, since it's not hurting anything, it's okay. And not that it's precedential in any way in the future, but for your own purposes. You know, so you're gonna make a finding, I believe, that the planner adequately addressed the proofs that were required for you to grant the variance. And Tom will write it all up the right way, but.
Yeah, that, Frank said it well. You remember the Medici case is applicable as the applicant has said, and their witness has acknowledged. And that means that if you grant the use variance in a zone that does not permit the use for a use that is of this type, a use that is not allowed in the zone, that you are required to make a finding that the enhanced burden of proof has been met. And that you can reconcile the fact that although there have been inquiries and considerations of changing the zoning in this zone, there have been no changes in the zone by the Township Committee in the BN2 zone. And that this use, two-family, is just not permitted. Whereas single family is permitted. And whereas apartments are not even allowed in the BN2 zone, which is different than the BN zone. So in order to make an affirmative approval or grant of an approval here, you need to find that the affirmative criteria are met. And they did not try to demonstrate hardship, which is not exactly a criteria, a special reason for a use variance. There is one other type that's like a hardship. It's called inutility for the zone purposes. They did not try to make that proof. They are merely trying to say to you that it meets the special reasons because it is particularly suitable for the proposed use for a two-family house, and that they contend they meet the negative criteria and that Medici standard. So I'll craft a motion for you. It sounded like without the additional parking, if I understood it correctly, and we'll see if you get 5 out of 7 eligible members to vote in favor of this. If it does not, if it gets only 4, it's denied. If it gets less than 4, it's denied. And a denial would be. So right now, unless you direct me otherwise, the moving party directs me otherwise, I'm going to propose a motion to approve a use variance with the variance plan as proposed, but without any additional paving or parking and no changes to the site. Is there such a motion?
Tom, what happens to the parking? How do we get that implemented?
If you would like, I thought I understood you to be saying no changes. So if the moving party would like to require the 2 parking spaces behind the patio, as stated by Mr. Ferrero, and the landscaping along the southern boundary, and no other changes. It's Lou, that your motion, Lou?
Well,
Yes.
if the goal is to just accomplish the K-turn, why do we need 2 parks?
It's not just for the K-turn, it's also so you don't get cars railroaded into the garage where you've got a car.
That would be just for convenience, though.
But it's a big inconvenience if you're in the car and you leave the house at 6 o'clock in the morning and your wife is sound asleep.
No worse than it is today. I mean, even adding 1 spot would improve the circumstance.
I understand.
Motion to approve
With the changes, with
and the
parking.
landscaping to be reviewed and approved by Mr. Ferrero. And we have a second from Anna, and roll call vote of the eligible 7 members.
Mr. Cavallini?
Aye.
Ms. Urbana?
Aye.
Mr. Giovanni?
Aye.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. Rodriguez?
No.
Mr. Walter?
No.
Mr. First?
I vote here?
I don't think he does.
I'm so sorry, Chairwoman Gotcha.
I'm sorry.
Okay, Kathy.
Oh, Kathy, she's also.
alternate.
So if I'm not doing Steve, I'm.
Muted.
What do you have?
Wait a minute.
You got 7.
4, 5,
That's fine.
6, 7. Yeah,
I don't think. you
Carol's
got
number 7. So far we had 4 yeses, 2 nos, and Carol, you're a yes. So 5 yeses.
Okay,
2
so the
nos.
use variance that does carry with the conditions.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you and good luck.
Thank you, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'll open it up to the board. Anything, anybody?
Tom, did you put this in our ditty bag?
I'm sorry, what?
Did you put this in our ditty bag?
That came from Frank.
That was supposed to have been attached to my memo, to show you where those special purposes. The special reason purposes of the land use law. And when she read it, she told you about A, E, and G. So if you look at those letters, those were the things that you said. You agreed that she demonstrated that they meant.
Okay,
Yeah, this is nice to have.
this is good, man. Thanks. Question for you, Tom, about this though. This is called the municipal land use law. But then down in item D, it talks about all these other beneficiaries of the municipal land use law, including the state. I would think the municipality takes precedent over the state because it's called a municipal land use law. Is that not the case?
I really don't know what you're looking at, so I got.
The municipal land use
I
law
don't know.
is the state's generosity to the municipality to actually give them the perception that they have power. Yes, that's what the municipal land use law is. They're pretending you have.
Until they take it away.
Yeah.
So that's exactly right. Till they take it away and get ready for the next one. A4 probably is getting released from committee today. Probably would be a disaster for every municipality in the state except the urban areas.
It's so cynical.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay.
Okay.
Good
Right, everybody.
night. Good night, Cap.
Good night, Gracie.
Oh, wow.